On September 5, 1945, a man exited the Soviet embassy in Ottawa with 109 documents hidden under his shirt. His name was Igor Gouzenko. He was a code clerk for Soviet military intelligence. And what he carried in those documents would kickstart the Cold War, not in Berlin or Washington, but in Ottawa. Nobody wanted to listen to him. For 24 hours, he knocked on doors that remained shut. When they finally opened, the world had changed. In September 1945, World War II had just ended. The USSR and Western powers were still officially allies. The Soviet embassy in Ottawa was a normal diplomatic institution. Igor Gouzenko, aged 26, had been working there since 1943 as a code clerk, encoding and decoding communications between Ottawa and Moscow. What he discovered in his role was the extent of a Soviet espionage network in Canada that far exceeded what Canadian authorities suspected. Soviet agents had infiltrated the federal government, scientific communities, and the military. Some were even working on the Manhattan Project, the secret U.S. program to develop the atomic bomb, which Canada indirectly participated in through its uranium mines. Gouzenko had decided to defect. His wife was expecting their second child. He did not want to return to the USSR. And he had the proof of something that nobody in the West wanted to admit yet, that their Soviet ally had been actively spying on them for years. The official version of the Gouzenko affair is one of Western intelligence triumph. A brave man risked his life to reveal the truth about Soviet intentions. His testimony allowed the identification and neutralization of Soviet spies in Canada, alerting the US and British allies too. He became a symbol of resistance against communist totalitarianism, protected by the Canadian government under a new identity until his death in 1982. This version is true, but incomplete. What it omits is the initial chaos, the 24 hours during which the Canadian government nearly ignored one of the most important defectors in Cold War history, and what those documents he carried really revealed about how deeply Soviet penetration had occurred. On the evening of September 5, 1945, Gouzenko first approached the office of the Ottawa Journal newspaper with his documents. The night duty journalist politely listened to him but advised him to come back the next morning. He then went to the Department of Justice, closed. He returned to the Journal. The editor refused to see him without a recommendation. He went to Prime Minister King's office. An assistant told him to go to the police. He went to the Department of Justice. He was sent away. For more than 24 hours, the Canadian government refused to listen to a man who held in his hands the proof of a Soviet espionage network at work. The main reason, Mackenzie King did not want to create a diplomatic incident with the USSR, still perceived as a precious wartime ally. It was the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, that finally took him in after Soviet agents had tried to infiltrate Gouzenko's apartment during the night. The RCMP itself was infiltrated, according to Gouzenko's own documents. The 109 documents Gouzenko extracted from the embassy are now partially available at Library and Archives Canada, LAC. They reveal the organization of the Soviet espionage network in Canada, codenamed Grant in Soviet communications, with its agents identified by pseudonyms. Among the spies identified, Fred Rose, a federal NDP MP who was sentenced to 6 years in prison in 1946, Raymond Boyer, a chemistry professor at McGill University who had transmitted information on explosives, and Alan Nunn-May, a British physicist who had worked on Canada's uranium project. The Venona intercepts Soviet communications decrypted by the Americans, progressively declassified since 1995, confirm and expand what Gouzenko had revealed. They show that the Canadian network was part of an espionage infrastructure extending to Washington, New York, and London. In 2000, LAC declassified several funds related to the Kellogg-Taschereau Commission, the inquiry body set up in 1946 following Gouzenko's revelations. These archives raised questions themselves about civil liberties concerning interrogation methods used. What the Gouzenko affair reveals in its entirety is that the Cold War did not start in Berlin on August 12, 1961 when the wall was built. It started in Ottawa on September 5, 1945, in a city center apartment where a Soviet code clerk, exhausted, waited for someone to finally listen to him. And what he had to say confirms something that Western governments did not want to admit, that their wartime ally had infiltrated their governments, universities, and military programs while soldiers were dying together on the same battlefields. Wartime collaboration was real, and so was the espionage happening in parallel too. Gouzenko did not start the Cold War. He revealed it was already underway. Igor Gouzenko lived under protection in Canada until his death in 1982, under a false identity. He never appeared in public without a hood. He wrote a novel, This Faith I Had, and participated in TV shows undercover. His personal archives, kept at LAC, are still partly classified. The declassified funds related to the Gouzenko affair continue to be examined by historians. Questions remain open about the true extent of the network. Some possible agents were never formally identified. The complete list of people interrogated by the Kelek-Taschereau Commission and the methods used in those interrogations have never been fully made public. On September 5, 1945, an ordinary man carrying 109 documents under his shirt knocked on closed doors for 24 hours in Canada's capital city. When someone finally opened, the post-war global order was transformed. What those documents revealed wasn't just Soviet espionage in Canada, it was the end of the illusion that World War II victory had created a trusting world between powers. The Cold War had started in Ottawa. And nobody wanted to know. Subscribe to not miss the next episode.